Welcome to Reading and Writing Between the Lines, a podcast series about communication skills in the workplace. I'm your host, John Witzman. Join me as I speak with industry professionals and Conestoga faculty and alumni to explore their journeys with reading and writing skills. Follow us as we talk about how communications learning has changed over the years, how these skills are used in a wide range of industries, and the future of workplace communications.
And then,
did you get the sense when you were at school that there was a formal language, that there was a version of English that was official or over there, and that it was different from the style of communication or the words even that you were using with your friends and using at home? Did you feel like there was a divide there?
absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously with like slang and even with my background, I was when I was in Toronto, there was a lot more diversity and things like that. So culturally, I was exposed to different ethnicities and that kind of affects communications, right?
Sure.
For sure.
Was it a struggle to transition between those different modes of communication? Did you find that it was more comfortable in one or the other?
Yeah, it's kind of like when you grow up like the ugly duckling. There's a phase where it doesn't translate so well at first. Because you when you're kind of going from one environment to the next, obviously language and communication is it's a bit of a hurdle to kind of understand,
Sure.
right? And how to articulate and find the words and vocabulary and things like that. And so I always kind of looked down on after, and you have to kind of adjust. Like obviously the way I speak in a formal setting versus in an informal setting,
Right.
I've had to learn those skills, right? And I've been kind of thrown into the fire. So you kind of have to learn on your feet, right? With that there, and so.
Do you have a recollection of an awkward moment where you felt like you said the wrong thing in a presentation or to the teacher?
Oh, a few things. It might be too embarrassing to share, but absolutely, I think it's just understanding the. Even later on, I think I remember I was in college and I didn't understand pro bono.
Oh yes, that would be.
And I
certainly
didn't. I was like pro and bono. Like I just didn't understand the word.
The singer from U2.
Exactly, I knew Bono.
Am I for him
exactly.
or against him?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember it because I went to an art college, so that had come up, and someone had asked a question, and I didn't understand at all. Right. So it's just little things like that where.
Yeah.
I think it's helped, like, reading and things like that has helped kind of bridge that for sure. And obviously in high school, you go through the typical books and things like
Right.
that, I do remember like Lord of the Flies and all that, whatever,
Sure.
right? The reading materials that you kind of grow up with. And so it definitely helped. But I think for me, a lot of it, what I've learned is kind of like the verbal skills, right?
And that marks the end of another episode of Reading and Writing Between the Lines, a podcast hosted by me, John Witzman, on behalf of the Communications Department and School of Interdisciplinary Studies at Conestoga College. You can find other episodes of this series on our YouTube channel, Reading and Writing Between the Lines. Stay tuned for more episodes. Thanks for listening.